The African diaspora is widespread and diverse. You can find our scattered hundreds of millions in communities across the globe, largely due to the impact of trans-Saharan, transatlantic, and Indian Ocean slave trades, as well as voluntary migration. Many millions of stories could be told about our histories, but very few of those stories have been told so far. Outside of academia, little discussion has been had on the ways that those stories of the African diaspora overlap, intertwine, diverge, and coexist with each other, and with stories of anti-colonialism, international feminism, international socialism, indigenous struggles, and environmental justice. Due to the concealed nature of these relationships, contemporary Afro-diasporics' interactions with each other tend to occur only in major cities, college campuses, or on the internet, where we often both carry on together and clash with each other. The so-called diaspora wars that obscure our real enemies, white supremacy, capitalism, colonialism, and the state, are fueled by misconceptions, stereotypes, miseducation, and internalized anti-blackness, and are the natural result of both our ignorance of our interconnectedness, but also of our unrecognized differences. These are discourses I intend to unpack in the future. Look out for that. Knowledge truly is power, as cliché as that phrase may be. Through education, we can come together as a powerful force and uplift each other in solidarity. Let's learn a little something today about how spirituality, culture, and technology have woven together a true quilt of resistance across the diaspora. This video was made in collaboration with Saber, so check out the video I feature in on his channel on the Black God's drums and the Haitian Revolution. Let's begin. Saber and I discussed Haitian voodoo's influence in the Haitian Revolution in his video, but Haiti isn't the only place where spirituality has played a role in resistance. Wherever Africans have settled, they have found a way to incorporate, synthesize, and recreate the spiritualities of both their ancestors and their colonizers. One of the most influential of these has been Christianity. While as much as 30% of enslaved Africans were originally Muslim, many of them were violently coerced into Christianity by their masters or proselytized by preachers who may have been pro-slavery or anti-slavery. At risk of generalizing, in the US, Baptists, Methodists, and Quakers tended to be abolitionists involved in the Underground Railroad, though over time, regional splits would lead to the establishment of pro-slavery and anti-slavery sub-denominations. In the South, Methodist and Baptist preachers would preach Bible stories that reinforced people's keeping to their place in society, urging slaves to be obedient and loyal to their masters, and emphasizing their role as property. They cited a multitude of both Old and New Testament verses that they viewed as promoting better treatment of slaves and arguing for a paternalistic approach. Meanwhile, other Methodist, Baptist, and Presbyterian churches made abolitionism a condition for church membership and sponsored black congregations who were developing their own thing. Black congregations found their own interpretations of the scriptures and found inspiration in stories of deliverance, especially in the story of Exodus out of Egypt. Nat Turner, Baptist preacher turned armed revolutionary, would spark an uprising that would change the course of US history in 1831. The aftermath of the revolt would lead to state legislatures passing new laws prohibiting education of enslaved people and free black people, restricting rights of assembly and other civil liberties for free black people, and requiring white ministers' presence at all worship services. But the underground churches of enslaved people would endure, with nighttime meetings of one or several plantation populations occurring without the supervision of white masters or ministers. Usually led by a single preacher, these meetings would blend Christianity with traditional African beliefs and rhythms, creating the spirituals that would come to shape the past 5 centuries of music history. These churches provide psychological refuge from the hell world that enslaved people had to endure, and became a place for communication and a catalyst for rebellion. The churches of free black folks, especially in the North, would provide refuge and support for escaped slaves. The Free African Society, founded in 1787, established some of the first independent black churches in US history and were centers of mutual aid. After emancipation, northern churches founded by free black folks would send missions to the South in order to minister and teach. As more and more black churches and organizations sprung up, they would continue to exercise their autonomy from white supervision. These churches established and or maintained the first black schools, funded by their community members. However, tensions would sometimes arise between black churches in the north and black churches in the south, who wanted to do things their own way. There was also the issue of classic biblical patriarchy, as women were barred from ordination and had to find other ways to assert themselves, such as through missionary societies, which sought to address various social issues by organizing politically and providing food banks, education, daycare, and job training in the black community. Black Muslim temples would also provide support and centers of activism to the comparatively smaller but enduring black Muslim community. As writer Core Jefferson put it, for a long time, black houses of worship doubled as war rooms to plan protest actions and galvanize people made weary by centuries of racist violence and legislation. Black liberation theology and womanist theology were also born out of the black church, and particularly the African American Episcopal Church, emboldening black communities in their fight against racism and black women in their struggle against church patriarchy. Black churches also placed a lot of their focus on addressing poverty, gang violence, drug abuse, incarceration, and crumbling infrastructure. Today, as in history, the black church isn't a monolith. As Dr. Julia M. Speller would describe in her 1996 PhD dissertation, Unashamedly Black and Unapologetically Christian, there are several interpretive models of black churches. Some are assimilationist, largely made up of middle-class black folks who are willing to disassociate themselves from their ethnic identity in order to integrate with white society. Some are isolationist, made up of lower-class black folks who emphasize otherworldliness and de-emphasize social action within this world. Some fall under the compensatory model, where congregants find acceptance, appreciation, empowerment, and applause, which is often denied them within dominant society. Others fall under the ethnic community prophetic model, which categorizes the black churches who spoke out and undertook activism against economic and political injustices from a heightened awareness of black pride and power. The final model is the dialectical model, describing a tension in some churches between the priestly and the prophetic, otherworldly and thisworldly, universalism and particularism, communalism and privatism, the charismatic and bureaucratic, and resistance versus accommodation. In essence, a form of double consciousness, core to black existentialist thought, which I already have a video on. The black church and Haitian voodoo, however, aren't the only religions involved in Afro-diasporic resilience. Across the diaspora, distinct yet similar syncretic faiths have emerged, with varying levels of Christian influence. In the US, hoodoo, also called Low Country voodoo, incorporated various traditional West and Central African religions and practices, Haitian voodoo, and various elements of indigenous botanical knowledge. Historically, hoodoo was developed by root workers as a form of spiritual survival and resistance against slavery. Conjure, the practice of spiritual invocation, united the various African ethnic groups, particularly in the form of ring shout, where counterclockwise circle dancing was vital for ancestral communication and spirit possession. Many root workers served as healers, counselors, and pharmacists to enslaved people, and despite the suppression of hoodoo by white authorities, practitioners still gathered and maintained their practices. Root workers even helped lead slave uprisings across the continental US. For example, in 1712, an uprising in New York was empowered by a root worker named Peter the Doctor, who made a magical powder for the slaves to be rubbed on the body and clothes for their protection and empowerment. Gopher dust was used to hex slave masters, and mojo bags were used as protection against the brutality of slaveholders. The extensive botanical knowledge of root workers also assisted with the poisoning of their slave masters. Today, hoodoo practitioners are still active and still involved in resistance. Black spiritual churches have incorporated hoodoo in their practices while lending food and other services to the black community, and root workers, like other religious folks, have played a role in the Black Lives Matter movement, lending spiritual protection against police brutality. In Trinidad and Tobago, Shango and spiritual Baptist faiths have been traditionally linked together, though they are distinct belief systems. Shango, also called Trinidad Orisha, is complex and multi-layered, reflecting the diverse origins of Trinidad's population. It brings together elements of Orisha, Christianity, both Catholic and Protestant, Hinduism, Sufi Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Baha'i, Kabbalah, and other traditional African religions. In the early 19th century, West Africans in Trinidad were baptized into Catholicism en masse. Orishas worshippers, devotees to the spirits of the Yoruba pantheon, used the paraphernalia of the Catholic Church to hide their African beliefs and practices. Saints were used as substitutes for African deities in the altars, while the real emblems of the divinities were hidden away. Outward identification of African deities with saints served the purpose of protecting adherents from persecution. But not all deities have a place in the Catholic pantheon, and not all saints are identified with African divinities. The spiritual Baptist faith, though small, is a distinct practice that syncretizes many different elements of traditional African religions in the Anglophone Caribbean. While developing organically on the plantations of various islands, a distinct form of the spiritual Baptist religion is believed to have been introduced to Trinidad and Tobago in the 19th century by a group of formerly enslaved Baptist African Americans who had been given land for supporting Britain during the War of 1812. Most of these settlers were Gullah Geechee, an African ethnic group that settled in the states of Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and North Carolina. More on the spiritual Baptists later. In Cuba, the Afro-Cuban religions of Santeria, Palo, and Abacua have been a source of empowerment in the face of brutality from the Catholic Church, the governments of Cuba, and white supremacist society at large. Similarly to Trinidad Orisha, Santeria also syncretized Yoruba beliefs with Catholicism and Espiritismo, while Paulo syncretized Congo beliefs with the latter. Since the late 20th century, Santeria has undergone Yorubization in order to remove Roman Catholic influences from the religion. In Brazil, the distinct yet related practices of Candomblé, Umbanda, and Quimbanda are spread across the Afro-Brazilian population. In northeastern Brazil, through enslaved people, Candomblé emerged, the first of the three, syncretizing Catholicism with Yoruba, Fon, and Bantu religions, and, like Santeria and Trinidad Orisha, using the cult of saints to hide their practices. Like Santeria, it is currently undergoing a process of re-Africanization. Umbanda, born at the beginning of the 20th century in South Brazil, syncretizes various African traditional religions with Catholicism, Espiritismo, and indigenous American beliefs. Umbanda and Quimbanda, which syncretizes various African traditional religions with indigenous American beliefs, both originate in the earlier system of Macumba. However, they split as Umbanda is perceived as representing the whitened aspects of Macumba, while Quimbanda rejects those aspects. In the 20th century, legal protections combined with the Movimento Negro would bring Umbanda, Quimbanda, and especially Candomblé into the public limelight, as Afro-Brazilians began embracing previously stigmatized aspects of their identity. For Maroons, the African people who escaped slavery and formed their own settlements across the Americas, religious practices were thoroughly liberated from the watchful eye of slave masters, though few records are available about these practices. I've spoken about the Maroons before, but I plan on discussing what we can learn from the strategy of the Maroons even more in the future, so stay tuned. As you can probably tell, suppression is a common theme in the history of Afro-diasporic religious practices. The Shelter Prohibition Ordinance banned the spiritual Baptist faith in Trinidad from 1917 to 1951, supposedly because they disturbed the peace, though the real reason is due to the traditionalist conservative elements of society who saw their practices as heathen and barbaric because of their African origin. The police had already been persecuting them for several years, and the traditional religious boards worried about the large number of people who were leaving their churches to join the spiritual Baptist faith. So the government responded to their complaints, and the prohibition was put into effect. Worshippers were arrested, beaten, and jailed if they were caught practicing their religion, so they had to flee to the hills and forests of the island, where they would still be pursued and brutalized by the police. Nevertheless, they survived and fought many court battles in defense of their faith. Finally, the prohibition was lifted, and these days, though still somewhat marginalized, Trinbagonians got a national holiday from them, Spiritual Baptist Liberation Day on March 30th, marking the prohibition's repeal. Mainstream society, including many Africans in the diaspora, continue to ignorantly perceive marginalized African religions as evil demon worship, with little interrogation of the mainstream religion's deep ties to conquest, murder, slavery, patriarchy, and other forms of violence. Across the diaspora, different forms of spirituality, whether condoned by the mainstream or not, have been and continue to be a source of support and resilience in the midst of repression, a force for social and cultural connection, and an avenue for resistance. Unrestricted by orthodoxy or orthopraxis, our ancestors refused to allow European slave masters to dictate their full humanity, giving them a strong sense of identity, inspiration, and spiritual grounding that liberated their minds to think differently and understand themselves differently. Even if you're fine with where you're at right now, religion or non-religion wise, and you don't feel the need for the strength, identity, or heritage that African diasporic religions may provide, I still think it's important to at least do your own research, apart from the dominant narratives and misconceptions, to at least decolonize your mind. But for some Afro-diasporic people, spirituality isn't an avenue that they are willing or able to lean on. There's no denying that religion has been very closely tied to Black history and culture, but it definitely isn't for everyone. The Black Church, while active in coordinating a lot of community organizing, isn't without its flaws. People in the Black community, and especially Black women, who speak out against the church, risk estrangement from their families and support networks, and risk loss of social status and reputation. Patriarchal ideas continue to harm predominantly female congregations, while respectability politics plagues many Black churches' approach to social issues. In the socially conservative spaces of many Black churches, queer Black folks are often openly opposed, while issues like HIV/AIDS are stigmatized and ignored. Fear of damnation is weaponized to keep the congregation in check, while prayer is used as a substitute for much-needed mental or physical health care. And some preachers have gotten absurdly wealthy off of their poor congregations. So many Black folks have left the church over the years. Yet still, Black atheists and agnostics and church non-goers are made invisible by popular perceptions of atheism or agnosticism as a white thing. Black atheists and secular humanists know all too well the social consequences of their lack of belief, but they too have been involved in the struggle against white supremacy and capitalism, despite the widespread ignorance of their involvement. And they aren't going anywhere. So where do they fit in? A humanist current has been present in the Black struggle for a long time now, and I plan on delving into Black humanism in a future video, but for now, all you need to know is that humanists are concerned with life here and now, and what we can do as human beings to solve our problems and take control of our destiny. For Black humanists and atheists like Chandler Owen, A. Philip Randolph, James Farmer, James Foreman, and Ty Silderin, this meant getting involved in civil rights, workers' rights, and socialist struggles. Though many of them had to conceal their lack of faith, their influence on the movement was great nevertheless. As our intersectional struggle builds its momentum, if we wish to live in a truly liberated society, we will need to make space for a plurality of voices and perspectives unlike our own. A world of many worlds. The cultural communication between enslaved and free Black people was and is central to the development and proliferation of Afro-diasporic religions and philosophies. As we continue to intermingle today, developing more resilient and effective forms of communication will be vital for a continued struggle for freedom. Our cultures have been cultures of expressive communication. Carnival, which I've covered before on this channel, has its roots in flamboyant acts of resistance. Reggae, calypso, hip-hop, and more have been vehicles for political thought and emotional expression. We've managed to find solace in the spirituals of our cultures and found power in the precision of a well-worded chant. We've incorporated our bodies in our forms of resistance, whether through the hidden messages in the cane rows of our hair, or through the fighting force hidden in the apparent dance and acrobatics of capoeira. Today, the covert and overt communicative power of art plays a pivotal role in our resistance, from street art to protest music to poems to e-pamphlets. But I think we can take things much further. We need secure, private, and communally controlled social media that can connect us, confederate us, and coordinate our efforts towards building an alternative to capitalist society. The Black socialists in America are working to build a dual power app to assist with this. For those curious, the concept behind dual power describes a situation of coexistence, where two powers, one working class and one capitalist, compete for legitimacy in the transition away from capitalism. According to Dual Power app website, it'll be a platform that provides a framework for building direct democracy in every sphere of life, including the economy, with tools for founding, funding, governance, and internal and external communications. The design so far looks amazing, but I'll let Saber take it from here, as he delves into the role of technology in diasporic resistance.
We have used technology throughout history to extend our capabilities, bringing into being tools that otherwise would have only existed in the realm of the imagination. Considering the scale of the issues we face this century, it is imperative that we awaken the creative, innovative energy that resides within each of us to come together as a global community to solve these problems. In the past 500 years, colonizers have used technology to control and restrain our bodies. In order to maintain their system of enslavement, it required massive investments in developing weapons of war, chains, branding devices, ships, and whips. Since the early 20th century, the technologies being developed are becoming increasingly digitized. Yes, the innovations in the tech industry can be impressive, but we can't let these flickering screens distract us from looking at those who own and control these devices. In his book Surveillance Valley, Yasha Levine explains how the development of the internet has been tied to US military interests since the very beginning, and in the 21st century, ever more sophisticated tools are being developed and maintained with the help of some big tech companies. In spite of this, it is possible to use these tools to our own ends, just as our ancestors have used tools of their oppressors to liberate themselves, namely the Aishans who seized any tool they could find, whether it was a gun or a cannon or a sword or a pen. I made a video on the Aishan Revolution, so feel free to check that out after this. Today, our analysis must factor in the ever-dissolving boundary between space and cyberspace. For instance, we must look at how our data is being used to generate obscene wealth for a handful of companies, while we don't see a penny of the value that's generated. Controlling our data is one way to combat this. The Matrix Communications Protocol aims to help in this regard. Despite its dystopian name, it seems rather promising. Matrix allows us to run servers that can be used for direct, peer-to-peer communication. The protocol can be used with multiple interfaces that resemble applications that we are all used to, such as WhatsApp, Discord, or Telegram. But there are also interfaces that resemble the terminal, and even interfaces that run on devices like 3DS, all of which can be configured to connect together in a decentralized way. It's even possible to create interfaces of our own based on our needs. For example, we could create an interface that is oriented towards the African Diaspora, which can help us connect as a global community while maintaining our privacy. Another promising platform being developed is the Dual Power app, which is a platform that provides a framework for organizing toward a worker-owned economy. The app is being produced by the Black Socialists in America, which is a coalition of new Africans who believe that the workers should control the means of production in a directly democratic and decentralized fashion. Leveraging platforms like Matrix or the Dual Power app may only be one step in the long road towards our liberation, but they can help us build more democratic global networks and stronger communities, which is especially important for the African diaspora.
All that's needed now is diasporic solidarity. And I've already spoken extensively about building international solidarity in the past, so I won't repeat myself here. The connections are there. We just need to transform our dialogue into something more meaningful. Mutual aid already forms the backbone of many of our communities, and I believe that we can put prefiguration into practice. All power to the people. All power to all the people. Peace. Thank you for watching. Thanks once again to the family. Ongrad, Kobe Tamayo, John Veshi, Len P, Some Guy, Seth, Ipa, Wyatt, Beyond Binary Podcast, Mamish Disgusting, Ashley the Mad, Boy, Jeff Massey, Kiminoko, Alki, Forrest Alvarez, Poodlehawk, Joaquin Klepp Norman, Spencer Harmon, Matt, Jason Baker, Jordan, Redden Bush, Tom S, Bean, Scott Trin, Tyler Brandt, Brandon Barney, Mumu Shin, Christopher Hunter, Cyan Charles Harris, Derek Sue, TJ Daddio, Joseph Wilby Rainsford, Jonathan Farris, Khadijah Mbo, Will Ilcock, Night of Space, Alex Kona, Seedling Attempt, RDTV, Katsy, Lindsay Oliver, and Swavkar Jones. You can join these beautiful humans and support me too on patreon.com/sayingtrue. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your fellow peoples. Feed the algorithm. Check out my previous videos for the fascinating topics. You can follow me on Twitter @_sayingtrue. Thanks again. Peace.